Well, good evening. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Nada St. Germain, and I have been a part of this incredible company for over 34 years. I am so happy to have met actually Dr. Todd Miller, who is coming to this area in just a few weeks. And, when I talked to Todd Miller a couple of years ago at our last summit, about weight loss and weight training and building lean muscle mass to burn fat, and he shared some pretty awesome information, and then when he did the presentation on stage, it just kind of made more sense. And the more I heard about it, the more I started to understand the importance of protein and exercise and heavy lifting. My body changed and I felt better. And it's something that you can even do as you age, which is so important, because I know my mom used to say to me, "Oh, why are you lifting so many weights?" And when I shared that with Dr. Todd Miller, he said, "This is one time I'm going to tell you not to listen to your mom." So, anyways, my mom thought it was kind of funny. But anyways, let's just start off with, oops, here we go. And just give me a thumbs up if you can hear him, and we'll start with Dr. Todd, and then we'll go into the PowerPoint.
So yeah, thanks everybody for having me here. I'm very excited to be here. I just want to follow up a little bit, tell you a little story. This is the second direct selling company that has asked me to be on their scientific advisory board. And the first time I did that, I went to my first meeting and sat back in the back, like most people do. And I started hearing these stories of all these successful people. And like John said, I agree that nutrition has to be spread. That word needs to be spread really at the grassroots level, because the government doesn't do a good job at it. So I sat back there and I listened to these stories, and I lasted about 8 months. And I said, this is a really good opportunity. I could do really well with this. And I stepped down from the scientific advisory board to build a business. That was probably the best decision I ever made, one of the best decisions I ever made. And I say that because I want to reassure you that I believe that you have made a very good decision by getting involved with this company, okay? Oh no, only if you mean it. So I do think that there's a very bright future for this company, and it's exciting because being in the health and fitness and nutrition industry for 20 some years and seeing the miserable failures that has occurred, it gives you a lot of hope, to see such excitement about this. So I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. But what I'm going to talk to you all about today is the role that weight training and protein supplementation has in optimizing fat loss and muscle gain. Okay, so when we look at weight loss programming, typically weight loss programming consists of cardiovascular exercise coupled with some type of calorie restriction, right? And this makes sense. We know that in order to lose weight, you have to burn more calories than you eat, right? So if you do a bunch of cardio and you cut your calories, you create this calorie deficit and you lose weight. That's the idea, that's the theory, right? We know it doesn't work all that well for several reasons. So I want to talk about some of the adaptations to aerobic exercise, and this is critically important. Anytime you do some type of exercise, no matter what it is, the body looks at that and says, how am I going to make that easier the next time I do it? Okay? The body wants to prevent fatigue. So when you do aerobic exercise, let's say you're a runner, one of the easiest ways to improve that performance is to make you lighter. If you're lighter and you have to move less down the road, that requires less energy. So the body says, okay, what can I get rid of to get lighter? And you lose fat sometimes, but a lot of times you lose muscle. And one of the main adaptations to cardiovascular exercise, especially if you do a lot of it, is a loss of muscle. Because if I have a lot of upper body muscle, do I really need that to run down the road? No, I don't need that. So if I lose that and get lighter, now I perform better, okay? And that's great from a performance standpoint, But then why doesn't it work so well when it comes to weight loss, right? I mean, we all know that you just get on a treadmill for 30 minutes and you get off and you're 5 pounds later, your fat just melts off you, right? That never works. We've tried it for decades, it does not work, okay? So, why doesn't it work? And that's what we're gonna discuss. So, I have a picture up here that shows essentially what consists how many calories you burn throughout the day. So if you look at this bar here, this bar represents total daily energy expenditure. That's what that TDEE is on the left side of the thing. So this is all the calories that you burn throughout the day. And you'll see that there are 4 components that contribute to that. The top of the bar, you'll see that TEF there. That means thermic effect of food. So when you eat, your metabolism increases a little bit while you digest, and then it goes back to normal. So that's not a huge contributor. The next one is exercise activity thermogenesis. So these are the calories that you burn during exercise, right? Intentional exercise, 0 to 30%. Still not a very huge contribution. The third one, which is larger, is non-exercise activity. So this is getting up and walking around, just doing your activities of daily living, things that are physical activity that aren't intentional exercise. And then you can see that the largest contributor here is the resting metabolic rate, or the basal metabolic rate. So this large bar at the bottom represents 60 to 80% of your total caloric burn throughout the day. That resting metabolism is just you sitting in that chair doing nothing. So if you were to sit in that chair and do nothing for 24 hours, that represents your total daily resting expenditure, okay? Now, that makes up 60% of your total energy expenditure. So it would make sense that we would want to increase that, right? Because if we're just sitting here burning calories, it would be great if we could double the amount of calories that we're burning just sitting here, right? That would be awesome. Okay. Well, what drives the resting metabolic rate? The resting metabolic rate is mainly driven by how much muscle you have, okay? Now, on the left side of this graph, on the y-axis, you see resting metabolic rate, okay? Right here, resting metabolic rate. And on the x-axis, you see fat-free mass. Think of that as muscle mass, okay? So you can see that when muscle mass is low, the resting metabolic rate is low. When muscle mass is high, the resting metabolic rate is high, okay? So it makes sense then that we would want to preserve muscle or increase muscle mass during whatever weight loss intervention we're doing, because we want to preserve the muscle that burns the most, preserve the tissue that burns the most calories, okay? Now, something happens when you lose weight called metabolic adaptation. Heavy things burn more calories than light things. Picture a pickup truck and a motorcycle sitting in your driveway, and they're both idling. Neither one is doing any work, right? Because neither one is moving, but the pickup truck is clearly burning more fuel than the motorcycle just because it's bigger. And people work the same way. The bigger you are, the more calories that you'll burn, okay? So this graph basically shows exactly what we showed in the previous graph. You have resting metabolic rate on the Y, and you have body weight on the X. And you'll see that as an individual gets lighter, the metabolism falls. And that's normal, that's a normal response. But what happens if you aren't eating enough and you're doing too much exercise? So let's say you're doing too much exercise and you're eating, let's say you're burning 500 calories on the treadmill and you're only eating 500 calories a day. So you're creating this really large calorie deficit, right? You're not eating enough to meet the energy demand. And the body sees that as a panic issue, right? It's like, uh-oh, what's going on here? You're burning all this energy, you're not eating. How do I deal with that? So the body says, well, if I'm not getting enough food, let's decrease the amount of tissue, or let's decrease the amount of tissue that's burning all these calories. Let's get rid of muscle. And that's what happens. So what you see, if a calorie deficit is too large, you see a fall in the metabolism that is disproportionate to the fall in body weight. The metabolism falls faster than the body weight falls. That's metabolic maladaptation. That's what we don't want. Ideally, what we would want is as the individual loses weight, we want the metabolism to stay the same or go up. That's ideally what we want. Okay? And it's generally believed, or it's generally sort of accepted, That doesn't happen, okay? Well, it does happen. We'll talk about that. So let's talk a little bit about diet and muscle. So in overweight people, when overweight people undertake some type of weight loss program, about 20 to 30% of that loss comes from muscle. And that's accepted, that's published. So the scientific community basically generally accepts that during any type of weight loss intervention, you're gonna lose 20 to 30% of muscle. And if you're normal weight and you're trying to lose weight, which a lot of people are of what we would call normal weight, but they still wanna lose a few pounds, for those people, they potentially could lose up to 35% of their weight from muscle. The leaner you are, the more likely you are to lose muscle during dieting, okay? The more muscle you lose during dieting, the more likely you are to gain that weight back, and the faster that weight comes back, okay? So preservation of muscle during weight loss is something that's critically important. So we have to ask ourselves, is the loss in muscle obligatory? Does it have to happen? Do we have to lose muscle when we lose weight? If you're gonna undertake some type of calorie restriction, is muscle loss going to occur? That's the first thing we wanna know. The second thing is, if the resting metabolism makes the greatest contribution to total energy expenditure, and if resting metabolic rate is directly related to fat-free mass, if it's directly related to the muscle mass, doesn't it make sense to use some weight loss intervention that's gonna preserve or increase the muscle mass? That makes sense, right? But we don't do that. We hear, do a bunch of aerobic exercise. So why is that? Aerobic exercise burns more calories per unit of time than weight training does. Right? But I'm still gonna tell you should weight train, and I'll tell you why in a second. So the first question, does the loss in fat-free mass have to happen? These are 60 subjects from our lab, weight loss clients, 60 people that we pulled at random. In order to get on this chart, you had to have 8 pounds of fat loss. That's the only thing that put you on this chart. So you'll notice that there are yellow bars and there are blue bars. The blue bars represent the change in muscle mass, and the yellow bars represent the change in fat mass. The 0 line here is somebody's starting weight, and each pair of bars represents one subject. So the yellow bars, again, the size of the yellow bars represents the amount of fat lost. So this bar, 40 pounds of fat loss, 40 pounds of fat loss. Now this individual did have a little bit of muscle loss, but look at this person, 40 pounds of fat loss, almost 10 pounds of muscle gain. Huge change, right? Now on this graph, these are 60 people, 60 subjects. Of these 60 subjects, 15 lost muscle mass, 25% lost muscle mass. Now I'll tell you, when we went back and looked at these 15 people, 100% of them failed to hit the protein goal that we gave them. 100%, okay? So the role that protein plays in maintaining muscle mass is critically important during dieting, okay? Now, why do we do strength training instead of cardio if cardio burns more calories per unit of time? So let's make believe this is a 7-day week we have on our x-axis, 7 days, and let's say the individual's RMR is 1,500 calories. So they're sitting at 1,500 calories, and that person on day 1, let's make believe it's Monday, they're gonna go and they're gonna do a weight training workout. And when they do that workout, they break down a bunch of muscle, and that muscle then has to repair. And that repair process is calorie intensive, okay? So that causes an increase in the metabolism up to about 20%, up to about 48 hours, if the weight training is done correctly. So let's pretend that you do that. You'd induce this workout, you elevate the RMR by 20% for 2 days, it starts coming back down, and then you do it again. Same thing happens, 48 hours, starts coming down, you do it again. What are we accomplished here? If we have a 20% increase in RMR on average, and we're able to maintain that, we've essentially moved the baseline RMR from 1,500 calories to 1,800 calories, right? But we're only working out 3 times a week. So if you can induce a 300 calorie deficit 7 days a week by only working out 3, wouldn't you want to do that? You'd want to do that, right? You'd rather do that than get on the treadmill and burn 300 calories every day, because that's going to lead to losses in muscle, and that's going to lead to decreases in the metabolism, okay? Usually, or often. Now, there's a lot of genetic variability in how you're going to respond to this, but for the most part, weight training leads to improvements in muscle mass where cardiovascular exercise does not. Now, please do not think that I'm bashing cardiovascular exercise. It's one of the best things you can do for you, if not the best thing you can do for you. What I'm saying is, I think that the idea that just doing aerobic exercise and decreasing your caloric intake, it's just too simplistic. It's overly simplistic, okay? If you're gonna do cardio, do it on the off days and don't do it for more than 2 days a week. This is the recommendation that we give to people that we work with, right? Cardio is optional from a body composition management perspective, not from a health perspective, but from a body composition management perspective. So let's talk about protein and muscle. The US RDA for protein is 0.8 grams per kilo of body weight. And that's considered by many to be way too low. I only have 2 minutes, so I got a book here. So protein needs are higher during periods of calorie restriction and during periods of resistance training. And it's been shown that in order to maximize muscle mass during resistance training, you need about 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Now notice 1.6 is on the low end, and that's twice the RDA, okay? And also keep in mind that these recommendations were not calculated in somebody who's in a calorie deficit. These are for people who are just weight training. So if you're in a weight training and if you're weight training and you're in a calorie deficit, you really ought to be closer to that 2.2 grams per kilo range. This is a lot of protein. So the question then becomes, how do you get a large enough quantity of protein while still staying in that calorie deficit? That becomes the difficult part, because if I told you double your protein intake, and you said, all right, I'm gonna double my protein intake. I'm gonna get 50 grams of protein from peanut butter, right? Peanut butter gives you like, I don't know, 7 or 8 grams of protein per 200 calories, something like that, one serving, 190 calories, 2 tablespoons, 7 or 8 grams, something like that. So, you know, if I wanted to get 50 grams, can you do that and still stay in a calorie deficit? Now, can I eat 1,200 calories of peanut butter a day and try and stay in a calorie deficit? Probably not. I had a client come to me one day and he said, yeah, I can't figure out why I'm gaining weight. I said, what do you do? He said, at night I sit around and watch TV. I said, what do you eat when you watch TV? He said, almonds. I said, how many almonds do you eat? He said, I don't know, 2-3 cups. I did the math, it's like 1,800 calories or something like that. Like, you're not gonna lose weight, you know? Okay, so how do we do that? Well, the answer there is supplementation. And, let me go back here. So the answer here is supplementation, and Neolife has wonderful products that help with this. So the shakes, for example, 18 grams of protein, the Sport Performance, 26 grams of protein. These are very good products to be able to help increase that protein intake without causing significant caloric intake. And these products are very well designed in that the shakes, for example, are protein blends. And this is important because different proteins have different absorption rates through the gut. And when you want to have optimal muscle growth, you want different rates of protein absorption. So these products would have, whey, casein, soy, a mixture of those protein sources, so that the digestion rates, you have a longer period at which amino acids are elevated in the blood when you use protein blends versus single source proteins, okay? I only have a minute left, so I want to talk about what this looks like when protein and resistance training are combined in the right way. So this is a client of ours, Mary. Mary is probably 45, 46 years old, and this is a DEXA scan. So a DEXA scan is sort of the gold standard for body fat measurement. And on the left-hand side of the graph, you see that the red areas are areas of high fat, the yellow areas are moderate fat, and the green areas are muscle. This is 15 months result. So Mary came to us at 38% fat and noticed that her resting metabolic rate was 1,558 calories, which was 6% lower than predicted. After doing weight training and increasing protein in a calorie deficit for 15 months, this is what happens. So her total weight loss is 32 pounds, but her total fat loss is 45 pounds. So there's a 32-pound weight loss on the scale, but 45 pounds of fat loss and 13 pounds of muscle gain. That happens with an increase in the resting metabolic rate of 200 calories, which is a 14% increase. Now, the important thing to look at here, during the first 8 months, based on her metabolic rate, she was eating 1,550 calories. After that, from month 9 to 15, that increased to 1957. We had to feed her more to be able to support the increase in protein that she was consuming, okay? This is what we want to achieve. We do not want to achieve weight loss with muscle loss. It won't work, it won't last, it's not metabolically healthy, it's just a bad approach, okay? I realize I burned through this. I'll be around here for all weekend, so if you have any questions about anything, please just approach me. I'm happy to help any way I can. And again, thank you for having me and inviting me. I'm love to be here.
So we're getting to meet him in person, guys, in just a couple of weeks, which is pretty awesome. And if you have any questions at all that you want to share, just write them down and send them to me, because I've already sent some questions to him, and he said, yep, you'll be answering a few of them. So yeah, so really, really good. So anyways, I just want to say that it's so grateful to have Todd Miller part of our scientific advisory board. And there's so much out there on protein. There's been a lot of reports with some challenges on protein, even back in 2018. You know, there was a study that they found where some of the top selling powders had lead and toxins, okay? So the new study from the Clean Label Project, a nonprofit organization that examines labeling safety issues, found that virtually all of the 134 products tested contain detectable levels at least of one heavy metal, and 55% tested positive for BPA. So, you know, this is why when you look at proteins out there, it's kind of scary. And in 2010, they also reported detected arsenic, cadmium, lead, mercury in samples of all 15 powders tested. So yeah, so this is from the Clean Label Project protein powder study, also from 2018. And that's why having a scientific advisory board and having this testing in place is so, so important. And now I'd love to bring on Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen Vanderbrink, we have known each other for, my goodness, 30 years. She's a holistic nutritionist on our team. And we both had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Arthur first and being a part of this company and having some of these new scientists just come on board and join our team, Mary Ellen. So maybe just share a little bit about you, who you are, and what brought you to Neo Life, and why this is so important.
Yeah, thank you, Nada. Yeah, I was actually introduced to Neo Life by you 30 years ago. And at the time, I was just a concerned mom, and I was looking to improve the health of my family. And when I started looking at, like, especially the science behind the products, I was so impressed. And I love the fact the products are made from whole foods. All the raw materials are tested. They have evidence-based science. And meeting the members of the scientific advisory board was so eye-opening. Like, you know, both you and I sat down with Dr. First for years. And when you see his credentials, he was one of the top toxicologists in the world. He, you know, his bronze bust is in the Hall of Wisdom. He, you know, just like he was actually a cancer researcher, but when he started doing, he started to realize that nutrients in food prevent disease. And that's why he joined up with Neolife in the 70s. And he's responsible for setting up all these world-renowned scientists and researchers that are actually involved in the research and development of the product. And for instance, Liz Applegate, you think she's a nationally renowned expert on nutrition and fitness. She's a faculty member at the nutrition department and has served as the director of sports nutrition at the University of California, Davis. And when you see the way she explains things, and you know, and she was so impressed when she was introduced to Neolife, because she had been approached by so many companies and nobody had the, you know, the science and the research and the quality of products. So that's why she actually joined up with Neolife. And when you look at our shake, Dr. Todd Miller is talking about protein. Not only does this taste delicious, as you can tell, it's like chocolate, vanilla, berry, but it's an exclusive proprietary blend of 4 powerful whole food protein sources. So it's got soy, non-fat dry milk, whey, and calcium. So because of that, you get the full profile of the 22 amino acids. And it provides 18 grams of the highest quality protein, and you absorb this protein. This is a big problem with a lot of the protein supplements. This is easy to digest, and how they know you absorb it, there's actually a score called PDCAS, Protein Digestibility Complete Amino Acid Score, and the Neolife Shake is 1.73. So that is so high. So you know it's absorbed and it's biologically complete. It does have, he talks about protecting our muscle. It does have the branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine. So it's really, really a unique formula. And you can tell you have so much energy with it. You feel good. And, like I know myself, like I'm in my mid 60s and I don't want to lose my muscle mass. And this is sort of my way to make sure that I can help protect my muscles.
Mhm.
And because a lot of people look at the label and they may say, isn't there some research out there that soy is not good for you? I hear this all the time. Well, this information has been totally debunked. And when you look at places like Asia, like they have the lowest breast cancer rates and they eat tons of soy. But the controversy with soy is those who only take concentrated isolates of soy that are unnaturally high. So again, when you knock it off, when it's genetically modified, then it isn't absorbed properly in the body. But Neolife doesn't use concentrated isoflavonoids, and there's a lot of research out there that's proving that soy food intake in breast cancer survival, and they're actually finding that it reduces breast cancer and helps to prevent it. So, and here's soy intake. That was a study done of 5,042 breast cancer survivors in Shanghai. They found it reduced the risk of death by 29% and reduced recurrence by 32%. So it's actually your friend. And here's MD Anderson, same thing, breast cancer survivors. We've gone from saying no soy for breast cancer survivors to it's not going to hurt. Now it looks like you could say it can actually help. So they've made a complete about face. Same with the American Cancer Society. And unfortunately, doctors, I don't know if they're not seeing this information, but if they do challenge you, show them this research, right? Because there is no evidence in medical literature that soy protein isolate is bad for humans. So, there's lots of research. And now this is my good friend, Joan. Joan and I met at a jewelry party many years ago. Would you like to share your story, Joan?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I was introduced to Neolife 30 years ago. I was looking for something for my immune system because I'm a breast cancer. I call myself a thriver of 33 years. And I was drawn to the science behind the products, and that's why I took the products. And just speaking in terms of the protein shakes, I had the confidence in the scientific advisory board because I know they're up to date with science, leading edge science. And as you know, science is always evolving and changing. And as I always say, the others didn't get the memo of that change. So they were the old teaching. So anyway, I feel that, the 22 amino acids in the shakes help me with my immune system to keep it strong. And I'm so grateful for all the other products, including the protein shakes. And I feel very comfortable taking it because I know soy is good for you. Thank you.
So true.
And
Thank you, Joan.
Yeah, thank you, Joan, for sharing your story. And it's great to see you so proactive and so healthy. You're such a role model for everyone. And here's some examples of today's most common genetically modified foods. And as you can see, there's a wide range of foods. And in Europe, it's banned, but Neolife has no GMOs. Every single plant or animal ingredient is tested to make sure that it doesn't have genetically modified ingredients. And as you know, the 22 amino acids are important for much more than just muscle. We need it to produce digestive enzymes, to produce antibodies, to make our hormones, and even collagen. And you need all 22 to make proper collagen.
Mm.
And as you can see, like a lot of people say, well, is there sugar in there? There is no sugar added, but they do use natural fruit. And the amount of fructose per serving is equivalent to what you would get from half an apple or a small piece of watermelon. So it has glycemic control. You won't get a sugar spike. And for instance, and this is a naturally occurring sugar, and it's great. And when you look at, like right now, there's so much hype on collagen. Everyone's trying to have the nicest skin, but you think about what a lot of these collagen products are made from. They're made from skins and connective tissue of animals. It's Collagen is not a complete protein. It's incomplete because it's missing one of the essential amino acids. And you think there's 9 essential amino acids that you must have. It doesn't even include that. It's imbalanced from human nutrition, and it's a very weak source of branched chain amino acids. So it's not going to protect your muscle. There's a lot of hype with this product, and your body will produce all the collagen it needs if you have complete all 22 amino acids. And as you can see, here's an example of the Neolife shake versus most collagen shakes out there. And as you can see, it's missing the tryptophan, and it's very incomplete. And the sources are, I don't know. That's something that I would want to eat. That's for sure.
And that's
Yeah,
why they put this amazing, that's why they put this amazing pack together with our vitamin pack, Pro Vitality, with the protein shake. It's called a breakfast solution. Just a great place to start. This amazing vitamin pack. I like to call it a Cadillac of multis. It has your whole grains that are no longer in our food, or antioxidants, or fruits and veggies, and omega-3 fish oil for inflammation, and a multivitamin. So it's just a great way just to fill the gap. And when Dr. Todd Miller talked about protein and recovery, when a lot of people ask, well, when do I take my protein? When do I drink protein? Within 30 minutes of an endurance or activity workout is when you should be consuming something like a protein with a carbohydrate, like a whey protein. So this is what's going to help reduce the muscle soreness and aid in your muscle recovery, which is really powerful. And Neolife does have a sport protein. It's coming back. They're reformulating it, and we're just waiting for the release of this amazing product. I love the sport protein. I do use it as a recovery product. I use the Neolife shake for breakfast, and then the sports protein as a recovery. So this will be coming back, and it's going to be better than ever. And it's very similar, all the 22 amino acids, a little more protein in grams. In our promise, no potentially a dangerous stimulant. So great for athletes, especially for professional athletes that need to stay away from harmful things. And there's no artificial anything. So again, this is our core 3. So we did talk about the shakes and the vitamins. And when you add Elevate, which is our energy drink, we can send you information on this amazing product. But this is what we call our core 3, which is our most popular bundle that people do get started on. And if you're wondering, well, how do I get a hold of these amazing products? Well, it's free to become a member. As soon as you join, you get a 10% discount. And you can even get your products for free. We have a loyalty program where you can get your shipping back, and we can show you how you can accomplish all of that. But if you're kind of curious about the business, I know some of you have joined us tonight to learn more about the Neolife products and wondered about the income opportunity. Well, where in Canada can you start a business for as little as $98 or $75 in the US? This unlocks a savings of 25% off. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And you have full access to a rewarded compensation plan. So great marketing plan. And the support is always there for you. We have superior products, profitability, and you impact lives, and ultimate flexibility. This is one of the greatest reasons why I joined Neolife 34 years ago, to stay home and start a family and have time flexibility. So if you're kind of curious about that, just reach out to us and we can guide you in that direction. So again, if you just want to try the products, give them a try. It's free to become a member. If you want a little extra money, side gig, just reach out and we can help you. And if you just want to learn more, that's okay too. We're here to help, to educate, and just share the Neolife difference. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'll stop the recording and open up to any questions that you may have. So thank you all for joining us tonight.